Hello and welcome back. So recently we created a video on my first activity diagram to kick off 2025. And again, Happy New Year to all of you. Today we're going to extend that video and cover some things we weren't able to get to. And that's why I'm creating an extra video for you today. All right, so modeling in general can be time consuming. And how do you increase your productivity and reduce the amount of time to deliver? And the answer to that is in patterns. So what you see here in the toolbar are 3 patterns that Sparx provides for you. And you can certainly create your own custom patterns. That'll be another session. But let's jump into these and each one and talk about them. So let's get started. All right, so I'm in my Sparx common custom workspace layout. I've got toolbox on the left. I have browser and quite a few other things in the upper right, and I have notes and quite a few other things in the lower right. So let's go ahead and minimize in the toolbox these categories. We don't need them. And we are just going to focus on patterns. So I've already created 3 namespaces for these patterns, starting with activity in rectangular notation. So let's go ahead and open it. It is a blank diagram. Let's go ahead and drag and drop this in. You can click on it and you see the icon changes. You can click anywhere or you can just drag and drop it anywhere you want. And there you go. So it created an activity in rectangular notation. So one of the things that I didn't talk about, and at least I don't remember talking about, if you go into appearance, there's something called use rectangular notation, and you see that it's checked. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck it. It goes to the standard activity template form. So I'm going to right click again in here, go to appearance, use rectangular notation. Basically, it's creating activity box rectangular. And then it's putting the activity icon, if you will, in the upper right, known as notation. So this shows you that this element is an activity. Now, the great thing about patterns is they're reusable. So I can drag and drop as many as I want into my workspace and then start modeling based off these patterns. I don't have to put them into rectangular notation, all right? Big deal, right? Sometimes that's saving a lot of time than coming over here and dragging in an activity, this form, and then bringing them in. And then if I want to change them to rectangular notation, I have to, it's just more mouse clicks. So patterns reuse and save you time, make you more productive in modeling. Go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead and close this. And let's go to the next one, all right? So that is activity with partition. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this. We're in a blank work area. We're going to grab this pattern and we're going to drag and drop it in. Now it's bringing in an activity and embedding inside of it. And this activity is in notation, a rectangular notation already. And it has 3 partitions in here. And it just gets you started in adding. You could certainly come in here and add more partitions, and then center them in the model, but we're not going to get into all of that. So this allows you to come in and create very quickly. Let's say you've got 2 different activities that have partitions, swim lanes inside of them, and you can very quickly start to build out whiteboard and start your design or your discussion. Go ahead and close this one, go to the next one. This is action with 2 pins, blank workspace here. And we're gonna drag and drop or just click and bring in an action with 2 pins. Now this one's extremely powerful because a lot of times you want to create actions and you want to have input and output on each action. And this will require you bringing an action in. We're going to atomic, bring that in here. Then we're going to go down to objects in here and you can see action pin. And then here's another thing you got to do. And then another thing you got to do. It's so much faster to go, hey, you know what? I want this already built for me. So action with 2 pins, I can very quickly bring them in and they're ready to go and making you more productive to model. So let's say that you're doing something where you want to go, hey, I want this first one to be validate order. There we go, hit enter. This next one right here is process payment. And this next one, let's go ahead and drag in another pattern, action with 2 pins. And this one is going to be shipping. Just keep this very simple, all right? And then, of course, as I stated, you have a start, everything starts the activity, and then you have a final, either final for the entire activity or final flow for a particular flow. And then we can come in and do things like just move these around like that, then come over here and then go to layout and then go like that to make them horizontally aligned and maybe spaced apart. So very quickly you can model and then start your conversation about what's taking place. You can come in here and then bring in your associations. We're just going to use a dependency. Matter of fact, let's do something kind of interesting. So I brought in a class library diagram, and of course this is fictitious. These are just demo only. Your class library is going to be extensive. These represent JSON elements just for this demonstration. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. I don't need it open. And we're modeling along here. And in the previous video, I talked about the information flow, and the information flow allows you to select an element or elements from your library, class library. Of course, it may be somewhere else in your repository or even in another SQL repository. And we're just going to pick the first one, the order object for this information flow. And you can add as many as you want, but we're only representing one. Now what we're stating here is that the initial start here is basically flowing a JSON XML object into this action to validate order. So here comes the order object. We're going to validate the order, and then it's going to have output to input to process payment. Again, we're going to use information flow. We're going to add this in. It remembers the last place you were. And what we're going to do is validate order. And again, it's very easy to change those if you picked the wrong one. And there you go. And then we have process payment action. The output is basically, hey, we need to send an object, a class, a package to the shipping department so that they can ship. So we're going to come in here and shipping, there we go, and hit OK. There we go. All right, confirm payment here. So shipping department knows, hey, we have this order in our queue, but we're waiting for confirmed payment, right? And then eventually it leads to an end. We're going to drag and drop to our final or our end. And object flow, I believe, is going to be, let's just do that. We're going to use an object flow instead of a dependency. All right. So now we've created very quickly using patterns, these actions in this conversation from start to end, including the elements that are going to be used. And then the elements, of course, are going to contain operations and attributes, and probably from your code department, code development repository, allowing you to actually drill down to the code to understand what's being parsed or passed between these actions. All right. Your final product, you might change the names here from these inputs and outputs, may look something like this, whether you leave the class elements in or the object elements in here. I'll leave that up to you, but it may look like this. All right. Now you can turn this into your own pattern and use that to very quickly extend this action diagram, this activity diagram for other uses. And let's talk about that. So here we have a blank activity diagram called local pattern example. And if we go to our resources, we have a pattern in our design pattern repository that we can, let's just view it first if this is the pattern that we want to use. Now I talk about patterns in previous videos. I'll include links in the description below, and we'll do more videos on patterns. But let's take one of the patterns that we created in our last video, and let's use that one. So I have a blank diagram. I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to bring in this pattern into this model, right? And I could have dragged and dropped it into the model anywhere I wanted, like this. So I want another one, drag and drop it. I'm going to place it right here. And what it's doing is it's reusing everything that we had that when we built the pattern to become a reusable pattern for delivery. I want to say design, solutioning, but overall delivery for both technical and non-technical stakeholders. So patterns are extremely powerful. It's really cool that Sparx provided these 3 patterns to help you get started in building your architecture. All right, that's going to conclude this session. This is like 10 minutes or whatever that I needed to shave off the previous video. We'll do more videos on this. I hope it was helpful. We went through today and we talked about rectangular notation and how to change those. We talked about activity patterns with partitions or swim lanes already built into them so that you can very quickly get started with naming. You could come in here and double click this and give it a name, give it a full description, and hit the ground running, right? And finally, we talked about one of my favorites, and that is activities with pins. You can just actions rather with pins. You can very quickly bring these in. All right. So are you using patterns? And let me know if you've got any problems below, questions or concerns about what we talked about today. This is very high level, and just for demonstration purposes, it can certainly get extremely complicated. And I want to know what your challenges are. So thanks again for watching. And until the next episode, happy modeling.